So thank you, everyone, for coming this morning. My name is Jason Zemsik. I'm from Policy Reporter. We provide payer policy tracking. We support pharmaceutical device diagnostic manufacturers and healthcare practices, physician clinics, able to research payer policy documents. But what I'm going to talk today about is career growth, career progression, career opportunities, how to advance your professional pursuits. And I'm going to start off with a little story. I have a presentation, but I think the important part of this, and one of the things I love about this conference so much, is the personal side and how we relate so well to everyone's story. So I'll tell you a little bit about mine. And if you rewind just to 2019, I actually was sitting at a conference very much like this. Was out in the audience. I was listening to a presentation from a gentleman. It was on a really complex topic around copay assistance, a topic I grew up working on. And this guy had several years of experience, widely recognized as an expert on this topic. And he gave his presentation. And after it was over, I had a question in mind that I wanted to ask. And so the moderator was going around the room asking if anyone had questions. And in my mind, I thought, yeah, let's ask. But then it set in, and I think everyone can relate to this, and it's why I want to share my own story with it. I started to second guess myself. And I said, what if people think I'm just trying to look smart? What if people think I'm trying to show this guy up? What if I don't have my information right and I end up looking silly and it's a silly question? And so in the matter of a few seconds, all of these things are going through my head. But I said to myself, you have to do it. And it's ironic too, because my background prior to getting into pharma, I was a military officer. And so I'm there saying to myself, and I wasn't young, I wasn't new in my career, I was in my 30s. And I said, this is crazy. I went to Iraq, I went to Afghanistan, I jumped out of airplanes, I did all these things, but I'm worried and I'm second guessing myself about raising my hand to ask a question in a conference presentation. So I want to share that first and foremost to relate to everyone and let everyone know that we all feel those things. But in that moment, I told myself, you just have to ask the question. So I raised my hand, and the next thing I know, the moderator, the person there walking over with the microphone, and I'm like, oh, wow, here I go. I guess I have to ask it now. So I asked the question, and the gentleman pauses for a second, and he tells me, you know what? I'm actually not sure about that. I need to come talk to you after this and learn more. And and that was a pivotal turning point moment for me in my career, because after the session out in the hallway, I had all these people coming up to me to ask about what I was asking about. And they were saying, who is this guy and what's his company and what do they do? And within a few minutes, some of my other colleagues from our company that were there sent a text back to our executive team saying, Jason just asked a question and stumped the expert, and now everyone wants to talk to him. And so all of these things came from that. And when I got back from the conference, our team said, well, we have another one coming up in a few weeks. And guess what? You're going to moderate a panel at the next conference. And from there, I did the panel, and so many opportunities just grew from there. I got one opportunity, I got another. And so I share that story to lead off, because had I in that moment said to myself, you know what, I think this is a good question, but I'm going to play it safe. I'm not going to ask. I don't want to look silly. Who knows? I may not be here speaking today at this presentation, because all of the conference speaking and public facing things that I started doing originated out of that event. So I want to share that story. And I think I actually have to go back up here to make my slides work, even though I wanted to be down on the floor. But I'm sharing that story to really let everyone know that if I can give you one tip, if you only take one thing away from this, I'm going to give a lot of very practical tips, but all of the career tips that anyone can give you won't help if you don't first adopt the right mindset. And what I mean by that, and that's the reason I shared the story, you have to find it within yourself, even though it's hard, even though you get nervous, we all do. And that's one of my biggest things, is sharing that. No matter how many times you do things like this, no matter how many times you raise your hand in a meeting, no matter how many times you have to go to your boss and ask for something, we all get nervous. And so adopting the right mindset, that middle bullet, get uncomfortable. We always hear it. It's kind of a catchy cliche thing, but it is so true. You have to put yourself in situations where you're a little bit uncomfortable, where you push yourself a little bit, because that's where amazing things can happen for you. And that photo there, that is the panel moderating opportunity that I got as a result of raising my hand in the session that to ask the question where I stumped the expert. And another key point on that is the person who I talked to, he is now, we'll get into a little bit about networking, but this is a gentleman who now I would consider a very close friend, close colleague. I reach out to him on a number of things. We've spoken together on a number of panels since then. So it also illustrates the value of when you do things like that. He handled it like a true professional, and we've since built this great rapport where I can call on him, he can call on me, which again, were it not for that event, we probably never would have known each other. He certainly wouldn't have known who I was, and to me, he would have just been this guy that I can't go speak to. So many good things happen when you really just put yourself out there. So getting into some more practical tips, things that I try to focus on for career growth. You know, we all have things in our jobs, whatever it is, all in our lives that we just have to do. They're probably not our favorite things. They're probably not what we ideally want to be doing, but there's certain elements where you just do the things you have to do. But when you're really trying to propel yourself forward, I call it the zone of excellence. And I'm probably not the first person that's coined that term, and I don't lay claim to it, but it's a thing that I like to think of in terms of what do you like to do? What are you good at? And what is there a large need for? And I think a lot of us, we've probably seen the, is it Ikagi? The diagram where there's the circles and they're overlapping, and you look at the things, you know, what's there a market for? Where do your passions lie? Where are your skills? And really looking at the things that kind of fall right in the center of that, where there's all that overlap. Areas for me that has been hard to understand topics. One of the things over the last few years that has helped me tremendously in my career has been diving into topics that are just really hard to understand. One that we've heard talked about here at this conference and pretty much any conference around patient services and patient assistance that you're going to go to is copay accumulators, maximizers, alternate funding programs, really explaining those topics. I actually added up at the end of 2021, I did 223 client presentations that year on that topic alone. And the reason being, I found an interest in a topic that was really hard to understand and people needed explained to them, and they needed to really have someone break it down for them and teach it. And so that's one area that I would consider, or that I would tell everyone to consider leaning into. What are some hard to understand topics that not many people know about, and they need people to help them understand and help them learn? And this could be within your own organization. It could be out publicly to the market. There's definitely an overlap between those things. But it gets back to that go where others aren't necessarily willing to go, roll up your sleeves and do things that others may not be interested in doing. Another big area, and I think this is one where everyone in this room has a skill set, has expertise, areas that require specific qualifications. You know, do you have a certain degree? Do you have a certain certification? Are you in a profession that requires licensure and credentialing and things like that? If you have those things, use them to your advantage. Look for opportunities where that skill set or that certification can propel you forward. And then again, going back to the idea of the overlap, see where does someone with that skill set plus an interest in something else you have, you can start piecing the things together to find out, you know, where is my real opportunity to propel myself forward. So I'll say for myself personally, I have an example here. And again, talking about the things that just began to flow out of that initial raising of my hand, speaking and writing on complex topics in our industry. For me, that's really where I found my kind of zone of excellence, if you will, where things I love to do. There was definitely a need for it in the market, and I've been able to use that to generate tremendous opportunities for myself. So I would encourage everyone, even right now, as you're thinking in your notebook or in your phone, you know, just jot down what are those things that meet those criteria and where are the overlap? What do you like to do? What are you good at? What have you been told you're good at? What do people compliment you on? And what is there a need for? And when you put those three together, you'll start to get that clarity on what is my path to accelerate my career forward. All right, networking. show of hands, or does anyone want to volunteer? What is the first thing that comes to anyone's mind when you hear the word networking? Do we have a brave volunteer? Okay.
The opportunity to share ideas and learn from each other. Share knowledge.
Okay. Good.
It is a little intimate, maybe help them.
Yes. Definitely. So very, very good and very common answers. And I think the first one and the third one, I would venture to say, to the folks in the audience that were willing and to raise their hand and say that, I think there's probably a lot of others that are thinking that. And again, trying to be honest with everyone, I felt that way as well. I used to think, you hear the word networking and you're just like, ugh. And it has that cringy kind of feel to it and inauthentic, and you have to go to events and you have to hand out your cards and you have to walk up to strangers and talk to them, and it just feels really awkward, and so people don't do it. And that's why I say networking done right will unlock tremendous opportunities. So what do I mean by done right? Yes, there is the element, going back to my original point, all of these things are rooted in the willingness to raise your hand, to put yourself in a situation that's a little bit uncomfortable. But aside from that, the big thing that I feel and that I see and that I personally, prior to making this transformation in my career, that I was guilty of is not viewing networking as a ongoing relationship and cultivating the relationship. People often say, and in the digital age especially, and you think of LinkedIn for professional networking and sending a connection request, that's not networking. When you just hit a button and someone accepts your request, that's a one-time event and that's done. And you may never even talk to that person. I've actually heard people say, I have them as a LinkedIn connection, but I don't know them. And that, to me, it kind of just seems counterintuitive. So what I learned about networking and what I started doing and what has paid tremendous, tremendous benefits for me is seeing networking as cultivating a relationship. So once you meet someone and once you have that initial connection, looking for ways that you can help that person out and being genuine about it. That's another thing I think in networking situations, in life in general. People can often tell when someone is not being sincere, when someone's not being genuine, when they have motives that may not be, just for their own benefit, but they're not really interested in what can I do to help this other person. So when you start to think of it as playing the long game, we hear that phrase a lot, but truly, how can I cultivate, maintain a relationship with this person? How can I support them? How can I help them? How can I be of benefit and add value to them? What you'll find, and what I can say from my own personal experience, is that you will just naturally get paid back. People will think of you. People will, when opportunities come up, people will reach out to you. People will introduce you to others that could be of benefit to you. So I want to share, and you've probably looked at it already, literally how I ended up speaking at this conference. When we all were registered, and if we've attended in the past, you got the email earlier this year when the call for speakers came out. And I want to share it there and show everyone, because this is exactly the email that I sent to Melissa and to Elizabeth. And so I had met them over the years through this conference and kept up with them. In fact, I remember the very beginning when I met Elizabeth, we were standing in the registration line at Assembia, the Assembia conference out in Vegas. And, we exchanged business cards, but had I just let it be that, again, none of this would have materialized. But what I did, we got back, I sent an email follow up. It was great to meet you. I'd love to hear more about what you do. How can I help you? Here's what I do. And from there, the dialogue just continued going on, and our companies started working together. And then I said, given our working relationship, and this is, I think, what is so key, I'd like to work with you. I want to create something that is going to deliver the most value to the group. And it's one of those, if you are seeking to help others, you are seeking to say, not just, I want to get up on stage, I want to present so that I can, look nice and hear myself and think it's cool and all that. But if I can get out there and do something that's going to help others, that helps you, that's where you grow the relationship. That's true networking and where you're going to generate opportunities for yourself. So if I could leave one thought on this, it's that bottom box, which I mentioned earlier. Connecting is a one-time event. You can meet thousands of people, but when you build a relationship with people, that's true networking, and that's where opportunities come from, both externally and internally in your own company. I know a lot of people here are independent advocates, and you're running your own business, and that's where it's incredibly important. But even if you are working for a company, networking within your own company, meeting people, understanding what they do, understanding how you can help, when you're looking to move up within the company or when a new opportunity comes open in the company, it's human nature. You're going to become that person that people think of for that. And so that's incredibly important, to cultivate relationships versus just meeting people and letting it be at that. All right, we're going to transition a little bit now to freelance and consulting work. So we talked about career growth if you work, and quite frankly, and I say it so often, but this conference is one of the reasons that is exactly the case with this conference. I love the people. I love the way it's organized. I love the way it's run. I love, just everything about how they do this event is what has caused me to be very adamant, very passionate about wanting to pursue additional opportunities with Healthcare Advocate Summit. So absolutely, yes. When you're networking, don't feel as if you need to go and try to meet everyone. Find the people that you're going to just fit well with and mesh with. So transitioning now to freelance and consulting work. So there's one path of growing your career within a company, within an organization, or working for different companies and moving around. But another path that I think is very relevant to a lot of people in this event and in the room today is doing freelance work, whether it's entirely on your own or, which is the way a lot of people get started, doing it on the side. We all hear the term side hustle. Some people have side hustles that have nothing to do with their daytime job, and others try to take their daytime, full-time job skills and translate them into what else can I do on the side. And that's where I kind of want to focus in here, because that can be a tremendous springboard to career growth. And if you have visions of ultimately someday going out on your own full-time, but there are certain things that you just really need to be careful of. And so I want to talk a little bit about that so that we don't, no one sets yourself up for, you just didn't know what you didn't know, and then you put yourself in a difficult situation. So things that are extremely important to make sure you don't do. Some of this might seem like common sense, but unfortunately we see it happen with people. And so we want to make sure that we talk about it. So don't do things, if you work for a company, you work for a health system, you work at a clinic, a practice, don't use your work laptop to do your own freelance work on the side. It's great if you want to take the skill set you have, you understand reimbursement, you understand billing, coding, you want to go out and do freelance work on those topics. That's wonderful, but keep it separate. Don't put yourself in that position where you're using your office laptop or you're on the office computer while you're at work and you're doing work for your own side business. Similar to that, don't do outside work when you're on the clock, and I think the temptation could be there. You're at work and you have some downtime and you're trying to grow a side business or side opportunities, and you're trying to use that time. Be respectful, understand the situation, and don't put yourself in a precarious position with your employer. And it gets back to those, if you can sleep well at night, you know that you're doing things above board, you're doing things the right way, you are going to have a much greater chance of finding success in your side pursuits than if you're constantly saying, well, I'm trying to get this done, I'm trying to aggressively go after these goals, but I'm also worried, like, what could happen? What if I get caught or something like that? And I don't want to make it seem, overly more difficult than it is, but people get into trouble with that kind of stuff. And the final thing is, make sure you really understand any agreements that you have with your employer. So when you go to work for a company, you go to work for an organization, and whatever your conditions of employment are, and you have, we all sign employment agreements, we have employee handbooks, all those things. Make sure you understand, are you able to conduct your own business in the topic areas that your company works on? Some organizations have stipulations that you can't do that. And some of we've worked in our organization, we have a network of independent consultants that do projects for us. And we've sometimes had people have to turn down opportunities because they say, it's a conflict of interest with my organization, and I'm not able to participate as much as I wish I could. And, don't jeopardize your full-time job, your livelihood for pursuing your side work. So the big takeaway here is just simply review your employment documents, and when in doubt, just ask. I found that's another big thing too. If you're working on something, it's one thing, if you want to try to keep your side work secret or whatever, and work in quiet until you're at a level where you can go out and do it on your own or whatever your goals are. But if you have a question, just ask, just get clarity. Go to your HR team, go to someone that's going to help steer you in the right direction, so that you don't put yourself at risk by trying to do something that's well-intentioned. All right, on a similar topic here. So if you are pursuing freelance work, consulting work, identify people and resources for what I call the business fundamentals. And a big thing there, takeaway, is you don't have to start from scratch on this. We probably see it, a lot of you probably see it often, but if you are getting into this side work type of consulting business, you're going to need contract templates. You're going to need to understand accounting basics. You're going to need to understand how to invoice. You have to do taxes. You have to have someone, legal review any documents that you have. But the best thing, and it gets back to the networking, have people you can call on. Go out there, ask someone. There is a very, very, very high chance somebody else that has already gone through or already done what you're seeking to do. You don't have to start from a literal blank page. You can find someone that has a template contract, a scope of work document. If you're going to do a consulting project for someone and you don't know how to write it up and you want to make sure you're protected for your time, you want to limit the hours, you want to make sure you're going to get paid, you're going to have no fewer than X number of hours. Talk to the people in your network and find out. Somebody's probably already done it. When you have to do taxes or you have complicated questions around finance, somebody has already been through it. So that's the biggest takeaway there. And it goes back to the genuine networking piece. If you have cultivated those relationships, you've built that network, people are going to be willing to help you. I've heard this saying once at a presentation like this, when you make deposits over time, people are willing to pay you back when you need something and you go to them and you ask. So really, don't feel as if you need to start from ground zero. Somebody else out there has been where you are. I couldn't see, was there a hand raised in the back? Or? Oh, okay. I thought I saw, okay. All right. So moving on, we talked about a few different things. We talked about career progression within a company, within an organization. Big takeaway, there are multiple ways to use your expertise to grow your career. We don't have to think of just climbing the ladder, so to speak, in an organization, or we don't have to 100% go out on your own and be a full-time freelancer. You can do a little bit of both. And here I shared a personal example of myself earlier this year, and some of you may have attended. I hope someone got to see this, but Elizabeth, Lacey, Melissa, myself, Heather, we did a panel on career growth, and everyone shared their story. And when you look at all of us, each of our career journeys have been a little bit different. We've done different things. We've worked in different capacities. We're currently working in different capacities, but the core pieces to those journeys have been largely the same. And the things we talked about: genuine networking, willing to step outside your comfort zone, asking for help, not starting from scratch on the fundamentals. So things that you can focus on, as I talked about, advancing in your full-time career, looking for promotion opportunities, looking for new roles, both within your own organization, the importance of internal networking, or externally. So you come to things like this, you meet people, they're from another company that you have interest in, or they do similar things, and then 6 months down the line, you see that their company has an open role, or they need to fill a role, and they remember you because you've kept up with them. And that's one path there to advance in a full-time career. Ad hoc insights work. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the moments to come here, because we actually, within our organization, we have a few opportunities that we're currently trying to fill and that may appeal to people that are at this event. But this is where you may be working in a full-time role, but outside of your work hours, you do one-off, you choose when you want to participate, whether they're interviews or surveys or engagements that are inquiring about your specific area of expertise. For example, let's say you're a certified professional coder, and there's consulting firms all the time that are seeking insights and information from people that have specific coding experience. They have that background. They understand what codes to bill. They understand what the reimbursable rate is for different codes. And pharmaceutical manufacturers, that's the example that I work with most often, they want to understand on the ground, how does this actually work? We have a new product coming to market, and we need to go out and talk to 15 coders and understand what codes are you going to bill? What codes do you have the hardest time getting reimbursed for? And they'll pay people honoraria to do that. And so that's one area that with your specific skill set, you can definitely get into, is what we call ad hoc type of insights work. Another component of that is just simply writing. You think we all read the industry journals. There's so many of them out there. I talked about drug channels earlier on, Pharma Voice, Pharmaceutical Commerce. I'm sure in your area of specialty, there's a journal, there's a trade publication, and people write for those. People submit content, people do videos, people do webinars. There are a number of different ways where you can volunteer your expertise to create opportunities for yourself as a freelancer or as an ad hoc type of work. And then the final one, this is sort of on the other end of the spectrum, going full-time into your own consulting business. And there's a lot of people here that you've probably met, or you may even be one yourself. That's what you do. You work for yourself and you have an area of expertise. And going back to the original point, it's, what do you like to do? What are you good at? What is there a need for? And you've taken that to the market, and you're your one-person shop. Or even we've seen some people this week present that they started out as a one-person shop, and they've since grown that where they've brought people on to work with them. So that's another area where you're getting into longer-term projects. You're trying to get retainer clients. You're trying to get repeat engagements with customers. If you consult on specific areas and you do one project for a customer and you want to do well, prove yourself, and try to get a repeat follow-on business with them, or again, when they have a need in a particular area, you're the first person they think of. So that's another avenue to grow your career. But the biggest point is, again, at the bottom, there's no one way to grow your career. I think if we did a survey of all of us here, I think we would have a very, very widespread of all of these things. All right, so this brings us to, I did say we would have active opportunities for people interested in getting into this type of work. So I mentioned at the beginning our company policy reporter, and we talk about tracking payer policy coverage documents. We help both pharmaceutical manufacturers, device diagnostic manufacturers, as well as physician practices, health systems understand payer coverage. And part of that is a consulting line of our business. And so we have current active projects where we are doing exactly what I mentioned. We're going out, we're doing interviews, we're doing surveys with people that have a particular background. In this case, we're looking for, and I think if you scan on the next page, we're going to have a QR code where you can scan and actually be taken to a little screener that says, have you worked in any of these capacities? And if so, you would qualify for some of these survey projects. But our network, as I said, we support our pharmaceutical device diagnostic clients, and they want to know this information from people that are on the ground, that are in offices, that are working with patients. And the billing and coding example that I used earlier, I didn't just make that up. That was a real client project that we did where the manufacturer had a new drug coming to market. And they said, we need to go out and actually talk to some people that are going to be billing, and we need to understand, how are they going to do it and what's worked in the past, and how should we launch our product and how should we design our patient programs to ensure we're successful. And it's one thing, to kind of think it up and put it all on the slide, but where you really understand and where you validate the market is by going out and talking to people that are on the ground and working with those things every day. So our partners network is our network of people that do that in a freelance, in a consulting capacity. And here is, as I said, if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to a very short survey. You'll talk about, we have active projects in these particular areas. If you've worked in any of these roles, in these therapeutic areas, specialty areas, or if you know anyone that works in those roles, we also have a referral program. So if you yourself don't qualify, but you know a lot of people that are in a particular role like that, there's a referral fee if you introduce them to us and they participate in the project. So let us know. Feel free to scan that QR code. You can still come see us at our booth. We haven't taken it down yet. Or my colleague Bethany, who's in the audience here, if you want to just see her after the presentation, we can get you signed up, you yourself, or as I said, if you know someone, we can get you some information to pass along to them. So we definitely value that participation. These are paid engagements. So another thing is we've built this network. One of the things that we have really focused on a lot, and one of the themes around when we talk about career advancement to this group is we all are someone's phone a friend at some time, which is perfectly fine. And it goes back to the genuine networking that I talked about earlier. But when you're trying to transition that to a career in a business and growth for yourself, you don't want to just always be giving away free information, outside of what we talked about earlier when you're getting up and running. So these are paid. You'll receive an honorarium payment for participating in these projects, surveys, interviews. So we wanted to make sure people understand that it's not just, I'm going to give up an hour of my time and help someone else out, but what's in it for me. So definitely, if you are interested or know someone, please feel free to contact us and we'll get you all set up. And that concludes everything I have. We have a few minutes left, but you see some shots. This is from last year's conference. We got a lot of great experiences at this year's conference, met some more people. So for me personally, had another opportunity to continue networking, continue growth, look for ways that I can help both myself, my company, others. So I hope everyone had the same experience here this year. If I can help you out in any other way, feel free to reach out to me. This is something that hopefully it came through as I was talking, but from what I have experienced in my own career, I tremendously value people that helped me along the way and how I learned these things. And so one of the things that is very important to me is giving back and trying to help others that are looking to move their career along. And to go all the way back to the beginning and the story that I shared, 2019 me is out there at this conference. I know for a fact they're out there sitting in one of these sessions and they're thinking about what can I do to move myself forward, and they're hesitating and they're not so sure. So if I can make an impression on people, or if I can do anything to help people get over that hump, I'm certainly happy to do that because of what I've experienced and the way people have helped me. So I hope this was beneficial. I hope it was helpful for everyone. We do have a few minutes left. I'll take questions, but otherwise, thank you all very much for attending today, for your attention, and for what you all do in your own areas of our industry in the healthcare space. I know one of the biggest themes here is it takes all of us working together. No single entity or person is going to fix the healthcare system, but be proud and feel good about what you do in your area of the industry and of the system to help others and help advance access to care. So thank you again.